Good morning, everybody. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about sausages and why that makes Finland so great. Wilhelm already went through all the numbers, so we're going to skip the boring part and focus on fun stuff like eating. So, who am I? Long story short, I'm the CEO of Nitro Games. I've been doing games my whole life. I've been in a lucky position that ever since I was born, I had access to video games, and that's how I basically played through my life thus far. And I've been making video games for more than 10 years as a business and more than 20 years as a hobby. And during those years, I've launched more than 20 games overall. And one day when I was really bored, I started counting, and I realized I had been in more than 1,000 business meetings. So I've seen few of the industry trends so far from the consumer and both from the development and publishing point of view. But that's it about numbers. The company I have a pleasure of working with is called Nitro Games, and we do mobile games. And making mobile games is obviously something that's very hip right now. We are 2 studios in Finland, 25 people from 6 countries. And something of a challenge for a Finnish mobile game company is that how do you get your games out there? How do you make something that stands out? And that's something I wanted to focus on in my talk, that why actually Finland is such a great country when it comes to making mobile games. Why do you see so many good mobile games and mobile game companies coming out from Finland? And here's the thing that you normally see. Wilhelm already went through this, so I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I thought that we should dig a bit deeper into the behind the numbers, behind the actual written history, and go more into about that. How do we Finns actually work? How do we actually make games? So we're only 5.5 million people, and as you have seen, Helsinki here, beautiful, nice European city. But outside of Helsinki, it looks very different. If you go up north enough, you have all the reindeers, but between reindeers and Helsinki, there is a lot of places like that. That's my hometown, which looks very much like this one city from...
I think you mixed the pictures.
Yeah, might be the wrong way around. So we live in those concrete hills here and there scattered around in the farm side, and honestly, there's nothing to do. When we are born, we don't have anything that you would call as a Finnish culture. So what you actually do is you suck in all the cultures that come from outside of Finland. So since we're so small country, there really is no home market, not for games or anything else. What we do is we adapt to what is hip and what is going on in the world. And my generation was all about United States of America. So obviously in TV we watched all these great series from US, all these movies from US, and that means that the so-called Western culture, Western market is very much in our DNA, despite the fact that we don't have any market here in Finland. And in the end of the day, what that has led is that actually Finnish companies who create IPs are naturally creating IPs that are successful in the large Western markets, because that's where we have taken our learnings from. So that's one trick why Finnish mobile companies have been so successful. The other angle to this is that since we don't have any home market of our own, if you want to make any kind of money with games, you better go outside of Finland. So it's not like Germany or UK or Korea or Japan or China or US, where you can make a decent size of living simply by selling games in your home country. So we always need to take into account that we need to go outside of Finland if we want to succeed. The second thing, due to the fact that Finnish teams are relatively small, and the games industry as an industry is relatively new. It sort of created this atmosphere where almost in every company what you see is quite flat organizations. And the positive thing about that is that typically in a games company, all the people who work inside that company actually know something about games, whether it's publishing them or developing them or marketing them or whatever it might be, but they actually know their stuff about games. And what that has led into is that the Finnish mindset is very execution-oriented. So you have very little politics, you have very little meetings, you have very little planning, and the focus is pretty often on the topic that, okay, but how do we get that done, and then just do it. So that means that the Finnish companies are truly agile, and that gives them an edge when it comes to reacting to what's happening on the market and reacting to the changes in the industry, and then being able to sort of be on the forefront of new things happening. Next thing is that since the teams are small, we tend to be really picky when it comes to the people who are working in the companies. So what you need to have is super focused people who are multi-talented. So in Finnish development teams, because most of the companies are developers instead of publishers here, you have small amount of multi-talented people who can really pull off several things throughout the development cycle. And that basically combined with the mindset that people here are not afraid to win. So we don't have this mindset that I was born as a programmer, so I will die as a programmer, but we have this mindset that I was born as a programmer and I might die as a billionaire. So the attitude that the teams have is that we can really make it, if we really try hard enough, we can beat whoever is the number one at the moment. And that's the driving power behind all these big success stories in Finland. Of course, once these smaller teams succeed, then you see those companies ramping up with staffing and everything, but it really all boils down into having small teams with super talented people working together and completely ignoring the risks and sort of blockers on the way and only focusing on making the best games out there. So as an end result, small teams in Finland achieve way more than in our competitive countries. So having that said, wanted to also talk to you a little bit about what does all that mean in practice. And since I work at Nitro Games, thought that that's a good example to use here. So we set a challenge for us in June this year. And we basically wanted to create social real-time multiplayer on mobile. And we very well understand that that's a rising market trend, which is something that hasn't really sort of being saturated yet. You don't really yet know what type of games and what genres exactly are going to be the winning ones. But we figured that that's what we want to do. So we approach this problem or challenge in the following way. In a prototyping way, that's something we love to do a lot. You have small teams that try to churn out the core of something that's fun on screen as fast as possible, which is the typical way you do prototyping. And our way of perfecting that process is that it's all about the action and execution, so less talk. It's pointless to design something if it's not needed yet. And our take on this phase is that theoretically you can splice any good mobile game into three parts, which is the core game and the meta game, and then also the so-called free-to-play social monetization layer. And in prototyping, our focus is in the core game exclusively. We don't worry about the meta game yet or the monetization, but only about the core gameplay. Especially when it's multiplayer, it's crucial that what you feel when you do the core action feels good. So you don't need to plan that. You just do it, and you know when you have it. And then one important mindset that we have is that if someone has an idea, it needs to be on screen afternoon the latest. So we don't want to talk about something for too long, because when you keep talking about it, I might have something in my head, you will read it in a different way in your head, and we're not talking about the same thing. But when we see it on screen, we're actually seeing and talking about the same thing. So getting stuff on screen is crucial. And what we've also learned is that basically the smaller the team, the more you actually achieve at this point. It tends to sound sort of ridiculous, and sometimes it sounds a little bit like somebody's just preaching, but it really is so. During this summer, we basically worked on 3 different prototyping projects, and few of these projects had somewhere between 4 to 6 people involved with them overall, and roughly 6 weeks of time, which means that we had something relatively developed on screen and several features and so on. But one of these projects we started very late, and we only had 3 guys. Basically 1 producer, designer type of guy, sort of the idea mastermind, 1 art guy who did all that's to be done in Unity, and 1 code guy who did whatever programmers do. And 1 week was all they had time. And the result of that prototyping was actually the best version of the game that we did during the summer. So it's sometimes very hard to believe, but at least that's what we've learned several times, that the smaller you can put the team in this phase, the better. Then, when we move to the production side, so once you have prototyped, found the fun, you have created the perfect IP, you have a good understanding that this is what we want to do, then when you go into production phase, you need to throw all of that mindset away and focus into a completely different type of mindset, which is all about delivery. So you need to make sure that those things that have been planned to put on screen find their way on screen as fast as possible, in a way that you don't need to return to those topics ever again. So you want to do it right for the first time, and you want to deliver stuff on screen as fast as possible, because time to market is crucial in today's mobile gaming. What we are seeing when we are looking at the numbers that how the market is trending at the moment and what's happening behind those, our forecast is that these market trends are going to be shorter and shorter. The cycles of the new genres are going to be shorter and shorter moving forward. So we don't expect to see too many games coming out that will rule the market for 3 years anymore, but rather have these type of shorter bursts where one game is hit game for 6 months and then it dies off. So it's crucial that during production, you deliver fast, and you deliver with the right quality. So, trying to get this button off here to work. There we go. So to wrap up, what's so fantastic about Finland? In a nutshell, behind all the cool numbers and so on, I think it's very safe to say that in Finland, small is the new big. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.